Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to share with you something that has been requested. So several months back, I made a video that kind of outlined how we do some game schooling in our house, how we use games and decks of cards and just different manipulatives to teach math in our house. And from that video, I was asked to share some of the other card games that we use in our house to kind of supplement our math curriculum. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to start with my youngest and some of the things that you can do with the younger crowd, and then kind of work my way up to my oldest is in 5th grade, to maybe some more age appropriate games for a 5th grader, and then everywhere in between. The other thing that I wanted to share is that, everybody or almost everybody has a deck of cards in their house. So this is a really easy, cheap, simple thing of something that you can use in your house to supplement your math curriculum. It's easy to tag along. You can take it with you when you're traveling, something just fun to throw in. And a lot of times when you're doing these games, your kids don't even realize that they're doing math. They see it as a game. So it's a win-win. They're having a good time, but they're also working on their math skills. So the first games that I want to share with you are some of the games that I would use for my youngest. She is 4, and the first one is obviously just going to be taking some cards and handing her probably just 1 through 10. And I'm going to mix them up, and then I'm going to go and have her put them in order and show me that she is able to recognize the numbers. I'm going to point out that A stands for 1, and that obviously all the other numbers are appropriate and normal, but she's going to go and she's just going to lay them out in order to make sure that she is able to recognize the numbers as well as put them in order. Once you do that, a fun little game to play is once she has put them in the appropriate order, you have her close her eyes, and then you just put one and hide it behind your back and have her open her eyes, or him, and you say, okay, which one's missing? And so they look down and they are trying to figure out, okay, which one of the numbers is missing. So that is a very simple one to have cards laying around, have them put them in order, work on their number recognition, and then practice some games of hiding. And they like to play it as well. Ian likes to play it where I hide my eyes, she pulls one, and then I have to try and figure out which number she has pulled. And it just is a fun back and forth way to practice our number recognition. Now, the second game is another common game that you probably even have another game similar, but it is just memory. So taking your deck of cards, however many you want, but playing memory, hiding, you're going to put them face down so that you can't see them. And with the younger kids, again, this can be just number recognition where she is trying to pull up and make a match in the when everything is hidden and find a 2 and a 2 and a 5 and a 5. And when you make the match, you pull them off and you get to keep those cards. Obviously, whoever has the most cards at the end is the winner, but just a simple memory game is good to work on your number recognition. Now, as they get older, you can use memory in so many different ways. Another way that you can use memory, again, putting all those cards down, is instead of trying to find a match of a 5 and a 5 or a 4 and a 4, instead now we're going to try and find sums of 10. So I'm going to try and find a match of a 6 and a 4 and a 5 and a 5, and we're going to try and come up with all the different ways. Obviously, we're going to exclude face cards in this game, but we're going to come up and try a memory game where we're coming up with sums of 10. So that's another way that you can play memory as they get a little bit older. Another way to play memory is making a fact family. So in this game, you're going to actually be turning over 3 cards. So when you're talking about a fact family, if you're doing addition, obviously, and subtraction fact families, a 2, a 3, and a 5 are going to be the 3 cards that I'm trying to find, because 2 plus 3 equals 5, or 3 plus 2 equals 5. And the same with subtraction. 5 minus 3 equals 2, 5 minus 2 equals 3. So that makes a fact family. So you can play memory with 3 cards and trying to build a fact family out of your cards. Now, as they get really older and they're working on their prime numbers, you can also play memory where they're trying to use the 2 cards to build a prime number. Whether it's through addition or subtraction, you can try and play memory where the 2 cards either add or subtract to a prime number. So there's lots of different ways that you could use memory, ranging from 4 all the way up until they're in middle school or even older. Just kind of changing the game based on what their specific skills require. Another game that you can play with some littles is just bingo. So what you're going to do is you're going to take out the face cards out of your deck, and then what you're going to do is you're just going to build, you're going to lay the cards on the floor, table, however, and make a 4x4. So ultimately you're going to have 16 cards. So you're going to 4, 4, 4, 4, and they're all going to be mixed up. I think I have several, I have 2 9s, but they're all going to be mixed up. And then what you're going to do is you're going to grab another deck of cards, and then as you pull from the other deck of cards, you're going to say, okay, does anyone have a 10 of diamonds? And then she can put something, whether it's a little bear or a puffball or something on it to be your bingo marker. And then obviously whoever gets 4 in a row first is the winner. But this again is working on our number recognition. And you could either do it with, if we're looking at clubs, spades, or diamonds, you could teach them that, or you could just strictly do numbers. Does anyone have a 10? So again, based on the skill of your child, you can kind of play to their strengths and what they need to work on, but you could play just a simple bingo game as well. A game that's very similar to the bingo. So again, if you have built a 4x4 on your table or floor or wherever you're playing, and again, you've got 4, 4, 4, 4, 4 sets of 4 different cards, so a total of 16 cards, face up so that you can see them. You can play a game called I Spy. So I spy a number that is greater than 9 and it is red, or I spy a number that is less than 3. And so they're ultimately trying to find the card that you are referring to by just playing a simple I Spy. So again, this game could be changed based on the skill of your child. So I spy a card that is less than 3, or I spy 2 cards that add to 18, or I spy a card that is a prime number, or I spy a card that is a factor of 3. Whatever it is, based on the skill of your child, you can change up what the clues that you're giving in order to find the card in your I Spy game. Now, as we start to move a little bit older, there are lots of just normal games that you can kind of change and make into a math game. So you can always play Go Fish. That's going to be a common one that you can play. That's again working on number recognition. But if you want to change it again, we're getting a little older, we could say, let's play Go Fish, but instead of asking for the card that we have in our hand, so if I have these cards, instead of asking for another 2, we're going to ask for the sums to get to 10. So if I have a 2, I need to know that I need to ask my opponent for an 8. Again, we probably take out our 10s for this one, so I shouldn't have had that in my hand. But if I have a 9, I'm going to ask my opponent for a 1. So we're working to make sums of 10. So that's another way just to put a spin on a familiar game that we already know, but working on some math facts. Another common game that you can just use as a way to learn how to tell what is greater than, equal to, or less than is just the simple game of war. And I know war can last for a very long time. My kids are really gung-ho about war right now. And sometimes we just play for a time period. And then when the timer goes off, we count our cards and whoever has the most cards is the winner, because I know war can go on for a very long time, but don't forget the benefits of playing war, and that it does teach us when a number is greater than, less than, or equal to another one. So if you're unfamiliar with war, you take the entire deck and you deal it out for however many players. So you just kind of go around until you're out of the deck of cards. When it's time to play, everyone flips over their card at the exact same time, and whoever has the highest card gets all the cards. So ultimately the goal is to be the person with all the cards at the end, or until your opponents run out of cards, or one opponent, or however it works, however you're choosing to play, with a time limit maybe, just whoever has the most cards. So you would just use this as a way to determine when a number is greater than, less than, or equal to. Then when you have a number, when you both maybe flip over the same card, so you both at the same time flip over a 10, then you you lay down one card face down, each of you do, and then you do another war where you both lay down another card face up, and the winner of that one takes all the cards. So again, I'm probably not describing that very well, but I'm thinking most people are familiar with War and how to play. So I will skip showing you how to play that one because I just have a sneaking suspicion that most people know how to play War. All right, the next card game that I want to share with you is called Triple Digit Dare. And in this game, everyone is dealt 3 cards, and they look at those cards. I also want to note that you would need to take out tens and face cards for this game as well. But everyone is dealt 3 cards, and with those 3 cards, you're basically teaching how to make the largest 3-digit number. So if I had this set, obviously my number is going to be 644. And then if I had these 3 cards, my number would be 944. And so then once you have worked on building the largest number with your 3 cards, you lay them down, and whoever has the largest 3-digit number gets to keep all of the cards. Now, if you're finding that your kids aren't really challenged by 3 cards, you could do, or if it's too difficult, you could do 2 cards to make a 2-digit number, or you could do 5 cards to make a 5-digit number. You could really change the game based on your child's ability level. Now, some different variations that you can play with this card game is that you could also change it and do it for some older kids. You could be making a decimal number. So you could do for a ones, tenths, and hundredths number. So you're going to use your 3 digits to build the largest decimal number. So that's going to be an added challenge maybe for some older students. And you could also always throw in the variation where if you are dealt a bad hand, you could offer an opportunity to trade out 1 card or even trade blindly with an opponent. So if I really didn't like my cards and I wanted to trade one out, I could trade one with an opponent, but I don't get to see their cards. So I would just pick one of their cards blindly, and whatever I got from them, I got from them. And so I wouldn't know until I saw it. But there are lots of different ways that you could change it up if you wanted to, just to add a few variations to the game. So another game that you can play is where you deal each player 2 cards, and then they're going to round to the nearest 10. So if I am dealt these cards, I can arrange them. You could have them flip them over in a particular way. So if you want them to only have this one as the 10 and this one as the 1, you could do that. Or you could just say, make whatever number you want, and then we're going to round it to the nearest 10. And so if I did it this way, I'm obviously going to round my number to 60. So 64 rounds down to 60. If I do 46, it's going to round up to 50. So however you want to do, you can let them choose or whatever, but then everyone takes their cards, they round to the nearest 10, and then whoever has the greatest number obviously gets to take all of the cards. So this is practicing on rounding and then also comparing 2 numbers, which one is greater. So it's a really good, fun way to work on the skills of rounding and comparing. So in a similar way, you can play a game called Close Call. And in Close Call, you're going to deal everyone 4 cards. So they have 4 cards. And with those 4 cards, you're going to make 2 2-digit numbers. So you can kind of play around with the cards however you want to do to make them into 2-digit numbers. So I have made these 2-digit numbers. Let's see, I'm going to do 46 and 49, or yeah. So basically what you're doing here is I've got 46 and 49. I'm going to take those 2 numbers and I'm going to round them to the nearest 10. So here I have 50 and here I have 50, right? 49. So I've got 50 and 50. And honestly, this is like probably the perfect set of cards to have it. It just happens to work out. The goal of this game is to take your 2 rounded numbers and be the closest to 100 without going over. So I made my I have 2-digit numbers. I rounded them both, and then I add them to see who can get the closest to 100 without going over. So because I actually got 100 by rounding, I would have won this one unless somebody else had been able to do the same thing as I was in this hand. But the goal is to get closest to 100 without going over. You could also change this up to make it to get down to 0 by subtraction. So if I started with 100 and I want to subtract my 2-digit numbers, I want to get the closest to 0 without going into negative. All right, the next game that I want to share with you is called Race to 100, and that sounds pretty much, it's just pretty much self-explanatory. Everyone is going to have just where they flip over, you've got the deck of cards in the middle, and everyone's going to flip over a card, and what you're going to be working on is keeping a running total of your score, basically, or your number as you add them, and your goal is to be the first one to get to 100. So if I had a 4 on my first one, you know, for younger kids as they're working, if they do, you could work on it as mental math if they're able to, or this would just be an easy one, just have a scrap piece of paper and a pencil where they're able to do just some scratch math on the side to be able to do some math so they don't forget their number or whatever it is, whatever their skill level. Again, make it work for you and for your kids. But you're basically just flipping over. So I have a 4 the first time, then I have a 4, so I've got 8, and then I've got 3, so I have 11. And basically you're just kind of going around and you're adding up your numbers as you go to see who can get the closest to 100 before anyone else. So obviously too, once you have your card, you would need to put it back down into a discard pile, because you might find that if, depending on how many people are playing, I'll say, you might need to put them back in so that you can continue drawing those cards. But it's just a race to see who can get to 100. And here's just an easy one that's working on your addition facts. So here is a really fun game, and it's called Make a Buck. And basically we are working to try to make $1 with our cards, where our aces are worth 1 cent, 2s are worth 2 cents, and all the way up, 10s 10 cents, jacks 11 cents, queens 12 cents, and kings 13 cents. So obviously this is going to be for a little bit of older kids who are able to understand the correlation between the money and the face cards. So everyone is dealt 10 cards. You're obviously going to need to do the math, so they might need a scratch pad and a pencil or something to do the math for themselves. But what their goal is to do is to get to as close to $1, or get to $1 before somebody else. And so everyone is dealt 10 cards, and then as you go, play continues by drawing a card, keeping it if you want, but then discarding. So you can only ever have 10 cards in your hand, but the goal is to get to $1 first. So once you would be the first one to $1, you would be the person who would win. Now, this next game is just very simple. I'm not entirely sure you could really call it a game, but you might be able to trick your kids into thinking it's a game. And this is just merely for math fact practice. So if you have a 2 and a 9, you could just have each person, where this could be done by themselves, have them go through the entire deck, or it could be a challenge between 2 people as far as a race, but you're just merely working on math facts. And this could be addition, or it could be multiplication. So if I were doing addition and I pulled up a 2 and a 9, I would say 11. And so whoever said it first, if we're doing maybe, you know, someone against somebody else, they would get the cards. If it's just by yourself, you're just merely working on math facts. You could do it by yourself. So I could do that. Or I could say 2 times 9 and do 18. So you would just be working on some just simple math facts. And if you find that, you know, your child, 2 cards isn't enough, here, let's just add another variation. Let's throw in 3 cards. Now we're going to do addition or multiplication with 3 cards. And if you start doing this, you can choose to either, you know, if you are the first one to get it, you get the cards, or you can just use the score, or the answer, if you will, and that would be your running score. So once you figured out the answer, then you would write it down, or just take the cards. However you want to play it. Do you want to be the person with most cards, or do you want to be the person with the highest score? You can kind of pick and choose what works for you and your family. All right, the next game that I want to show you, I'm actually going to have to turn my camera over and show you how it plays, because it's kind of a little different. It almost maybe feels more like a board game. So with this game, you are going to need a little bit more space. Maybe you're going to want to play on the floor or on the table, but it has more of a board game feel. And this game is called Card Spiral. And so with Card Spiral, you're actually going to need your deck of cards, but you're also going to need a die, and then also something that's like a marker for you, whether you're using, you know, something like a Monopoly piece. You know how they have the top hat and the shoe and all those things, you know, a teddy bear, or you know, a puffball, or whatever it is, something small that can hold your place and signify where you are on your board game. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my camera over so that you guys can see what it actually looks like when you play this game. All right, so I have it all set out, and you'll notice that I called the game Card Spiral. And so what I did is I laid the cards out randomly in a spiral. So you can tell that from here, it just slowly makes this spiral, kind of like you would expect to see in some sort of game board where it just keeps going around and around in a spiral. And as you notice too, I have a marker for each player. So in this game, I'm just choosing to use the teddy bear counters that we have from our other math manipulatives. And then I did say that I needed a die as well. So if I was the purple bear, what you would do is once you've set it up, I would say, okay, I've got 5. And so what you're going to do is you're going to you're going to move your person a 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So in this instance, I just laid out with all of the face cards, but you could choose to keep them in or keep them out. So in this, obviously, a jack would be worth 11, and then a queen would be 12, and a king would be 13. But in order for me to move my bear to this spot, I would have to perform the math function. And so this could be ranging depending on the skill and the level of your child. So if I were doing addition, I'm going to do 12 plus 5. And in order to move my bear to this spot, I need to be able to know what the answer is. If I get the answer correct, I get to keep my bear at the spot. If I do not get the answer correct, then I have to go back to my starting point. So if I did and I say, okay, well, it's 17, so I get to leave him there. So then the next person gets to go and rolls it, gets a 2, so 1, 2. 2 plus 3 equals 5. I get to leave my bear. So again, you're just competing to get to the very end. And in this one, you could choose to do addition. You could do multiplication. You could also do subtraction in this one and function it with going into negative numbers as well. So you could choose based on the level of your child and choose, maybe one round you're doing addition, the next round you're doing subtraction, or you could have multiple kids playing and your younger kids are doing addition while your older kids are doing multiplication. All right, the next game that I want to share with you is kind of like a similar game that I've talked about before, but I think it's only going to apply to maybe some older kids, and this is called Fraction War. And so basically it's like war, whoever has the highest number wins, but instead we're working with fractions instead of whole numbers. So if you're not quite at fractions, this isn't going to be a game for you yet. But what it is that each person is going to get to flip over 2 cards. And so what you would do is you could have something as simple as a pencil being your fraction line here, dividing it, and you're going to deal 1 card above and 1 card below. So this looks like a fraction, right? So you're going to have your pencil on the floor or the table or wherever you're playing, and your fraction ends up being 2/4. So that would be mine. Now my opponent's fraction might be 1/4. And so we're going to compare, okay, well, is 1/4 greater than 2/4? And whoever has the higher fraction, the greater fraction, they collect the cards just like you would in regular war. Except that I obviously chose simple ones, right? So that we could see that obviously 2/4 is greater than 1/4. But a lot of fractions are not going to be so easy to figure out. So this is going to be working your kids on their fractions and their ability to find common denominators so that they can compare apples to apples, right? So it's not, using uncommon denominators. So it's going to work on their skills with fractions. So this one's a fun one, albeit a little more time consuming, but I think they'll find that it's a little bit more fun to practice fractions when you're playing in a game scenario of war. All right, the next game that I want to share with you is called Order of Operations to get to 24. So how this works is that 4 cards are dealt. And so we have an 8, 6, 4, and a 2. And so these are the same cards that everybody is looking at. So everyone's looking at these 4 cards, 8, 6, 4, and 2. Oh, 4 and 2. Come switched. Okay, so we have these 4 cards, but now we're going to work with these 4 numbers and using our order of operations to try to get our answer to be 24. So it takes some finagling, right? We have to kind of work a little bit to see, okay, how can we use parentheses, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction, exponents, all of these things to try to get our ultimate answer to be 24 or as close to 24 as possible. But if I do 8 times 6, 48, right? And then I go ahead and put 4 minus 2 in parentheses. That gives me 2. And then I take 48 divided by 2, gets me to 24. So I have 8 times 6, and then I have divided by, and then this in parentheses, 4 minus 2. So ends up being 48 divided by 2, which gives me 24. So if you would use the order of operations to get it, you would be the person who would get points. And you could choose, okay, if you get it right or you get to the answer of 24, you get 5 points. If you get within so many numbers, you get 3 points. And if you can't get it at all, or you can't get close at all, you get 0 points. You could figure out your number and your scoring, whatever works for you. This could even just be a game that you're working on together. You're learning order of operations, and this just is a good way to give you a random number generator to help you work on ways to try and get to a specified number. And the very similar likeness is a game called Target. And Target is different in that you're not always trying to get to the number 24. And this one, what you would do is you would have your deck of cards, and you would take the first 5 cards. So the first 5 cards are the numbers that you're using in your order of operation. So I'm going to have a 2, an 8, 6, 4, and 8. And I can use them, I can mix them up in whatever order I want to try and work with those 5 numbers. And then the 6th card that we draw is my goal card. This is my target card of what I want to try to get my order of operations to equal. So this is the target number of using these 5 numbers in order to get there. So it's the same kind of idea. You're working with order of operations to try and get to a certain number. And then this game, you could set a timer and say, okay, at the end, if you have it, then you get so many points. If you haven't gotten it in that set of time, then you get 0 points. Or if you're close or whatever it is. Again, with working with your kids, you kind of figure out and make those rules depending on what their level requires. All right, guys, so there you have it. There are some games ranging from super simple to some more difficult ones that even I would probably struggle, like the order of operations. Those take some thinking, so those are going to be for your slightly older kids who are ready for those kinds of things. But it is super simple, guys. All you need is a deck of cards. So it makes it easy. You can take it with you on vacation, on a trip or whatever. They can be readily available. It's cheap and it's simple. And so I hope you guys found that helpful. If you guys have any games that you play with a deck of cards that I didn't mention, I would love to hear about it, and I'm sure others would as well. So just go ahead and drop that below. And until next time, guys, have a blessed day.